Chapter 5 The Lost Game. How a Great League Lost Its Way. There was one moment in my career that provides you with everything you need to know about me as a basketball player. It was late in the 1989-1990 season, the year we won our second straight league title in Detroit, and we were playing the Houston Rockets. The game was tied with about a minute left. Hakeem Olajuwon beat me to the hoop and was going up for a dunk. I knew I was beat, but I couldn't let him have the easy basket. We never gave a team anything in those days. We defended every shot, fought for every rebound, and dove for every loose ball. As Hakeem went up, I came from behind and went up with him. He's taller than I am and stronger than I am, but I had the determination. I got right up there with him and blocked it. It was like I took it right out of the hoop. When I realized what I had done, it was like everything stopped for a second. As soon as my hand hit the ball and slammed it away, I thought, did I really do what I think I did? It was just so unbelievable for me to be able to do that, and the accomplishment overwhelmed me. I looked into the crowd and saw everybody staring with their mouths open. And I started to cry, right there on the court. I cried like a baby. It was a moment of perfection, in line with my whole crazy life. I was beaten and given up for dead, but I made it back to shock the whole world. And so I cried right out there on the floor. I wasn't afraid to let my emotions show. I'm not so much of a tough guy that I would be embarrassed to cry in front of 20,000 people. There's a picture of him crying here. I play with real emotion, it says. That's what I was feeling. So that's what I did. I cried. It was like it all came out of me at once. That one moment was a total capsule of everything I could do on the basketball court. I didn't give up. I fought like hell, and I didn't let myself believe I couldn't make it. In the history of the NBA, you may never see anybody play with the kind of emotion I bring to the floor. You may never see anyone else who is willing to go out there and show all sides of himself. Just be an open book in front of the whole world. Some guys talk about it, some guys think they show it, but how many really do it? How many can tell the difference between real emotion and the kind of emotion you practice in front of a mirror? The common perception of me is that as I'm this hard, tough guy, that I don't give a fuck about people or anything. But when you see me cry about something, like not being able to see my daughter, you get a different idea. The emotion is raw and there's nothing fake about it. It's like the NBA thinks there's this great mystery out there. Why do people like Dennis Rodman? The people who don't know the answer to that question aren't in touch with the real people out there. They don't know what the people want to see. The working people, the people who have had to struggle to get something in their lives, they look at me and see someone who's one of them. I go out there and get my eyes gouged, my nose busted, my body slammed. I love the pain of the game. It makes me feel alive. I've always loved pain, from the time we played football as kids on asphalt of Oak Cliff. I'll go out there with blood running down my jersey or a bone sticking out of my arm, and I'll still be diving for loose balls. I'm tough, just like the mechanics and truck drivers and plumbers out there. They can relate. I play balls out, and people appreciate that. They don't care about the other stuff, the stuff management wants them to care about. I feel I have the power to express my sensitivity to everybody in the world, because everybody in the world feels the same way. They feel the pain. They feel the agony. They feel the stress. People can look at me and say, there's someone who's not like all the other assholes in the NBA. I'm not one of the pretty boys, and I'm not one of the biggest guys out there. I'm not even close to the biggest. I get beat up and banged up by guys like Charles Oakley and Kevin Willis, guys who have 40 pounds or 5 inches on me, sometimes both. But the fan in the stands looks out there and sees that I'm not the one with 20 rebounds. I'm the one with 20 rebounds at the end of the night, not the other guy. They look at me and say, you know, he busts his ass like nobody else out there. The league can market the pretty boys, but who do the people talk about when they're driving home from the arena? Dennis Rodman. I'm not trying to get attention by being flamboyant on the court. I'm playing the game the way it should be played. I'm doing it for the little kids who come to the game and say, Mommy, Daddy, I like that guy with the green hair. It's not just the hair or the tattoos, though. If I colored my hair and went out there and played like Chris Dudley, no one would give a shit about me. You have to have stage presence and emotion, and you have to be able to make the people watching feel what you feel. You have to bring the comedian out. You have to bring the seriousness out. You have to bring out all the sadness and all the happiness you have inside you. The game goes back and forth with good stretches and bad stretches, and fans go through those same emotions when they're watching. If they watch me, I'll take them through every emotion the game has to offer. I might get mad and get a technical. I might get frustrated and knock Scottie Pippen into the bleachers. Or I might get so happy that I stand out there and cry. I had so many emotional moments when I played for the Pistons. I set the team's single-game rebounding record on March 4th, 1992, when I had 34 rebounds against the Indiana Pacers. I had my radar going that game. I knew where every ball was headed, and I knew it before anybody else could react. The record I broke was set by Bob Lanier 20 years before. Bob Lanier was a 6'11", 270-pound center, one of the biggest men in the league. When I found out about this, it made me so proud. I broke down and cried. Again. After the game, I was asked if this was the greatest achievement of my life. I said, no, this isn't my greatest achievement. The greatest achievement of my life was turning my life around. It was true then, and it's true now. Every time something big like that happens to me, I always think back to where I had been and how unlikely it was that I achieved anything more than a criminal record. Everything rushes back at me during those moments, and that's part of why I'm so emotional. To me, the game can bring out that kind of emotion. The game is sacred, almost holy. I learned that in Detroit, where we played basketball the way it was supposed to be played. Every guy on that team wanted to play the right way. Everybody had a role, and it all came together to produce something beautiful on the court. We were the bad boys, and we were physical and rough, but there's beauty in that to people who really understand the game. Of all the things people have said about me over the years, the one thing they can't say is that I don't respect the game. They can criticize me for not conforming to their ideas of what's normal and right, but once I'm on the court, they can't take anything away from me. I read one time where Dick Versace, Daly's assistant with the Pistons, said, "Nothing has ever affected Dennis's desire to win. He's never violated the sanctity of the game." That's pretty heavy stuff, and those are words I could never come up with, but it's the truest thing you could say about me. I've always cared about what happens on the court. The rest of it, to me, shouldn't matter. The things I've accomplished on the court may never be repeated by someone my size. Before me, no forward had ever won the NBA rebounding title twice in a row, and I'm 4 times and counting. There were forwards who could rebound, Charles Barkley, Michael Cage, Truck Robinson, but nobody has ever come close to dominating the way I have. And I'm not leading the league by averaging 12 or 13 rebounds a game. I'm over 17 every year. I think the NBA is getting away from pushing its players to achieve things like that. They're trying to create an image that takes all the emotion and all the teamwork out of the game. You may never see another guy who goes about his business like I do, rebounding and playing defense and letting the other guys score. There's a chance I wouldn't make it in the NBA if I was coming out right now, because it seems all anybody wants is a fancy scorer who they can market to their fans. The NBA right now is like a whole season of All-Star games. Guys want to dunk and be flashy and see themselves on ESPN SportsCenter every night. The teams themselves are contributing to this feeling. Walk into any arena in the league and look what goes on outside the court. It seems the basketball is secondary. You get hit with a constant barrage of music and dance teams and stunts. You've got guys flying off a trampoline to dunk a ball. You got dancing gorillas and highlight shows during timeouts. These things detract from the game. The entertainment might be okay during halftime and maybe even timeouts, I guess. I guess I can live with that. But you're seeing more teams pulling that shit during the game. Public address announcers are screaming and music is blasting while we're out there, trying to play the fucking game. When I think back to when I first came into the league back in 1986, the game was the most important thing. People came to see basketball. It's not the same now. They've taken the game and tried to turn it into a big family entertainment center. Everything is geared towards making the family comfortable and happy. It takes away from the emotion of the game. If a home team calls a timeout after giving up a big run of points, The fans should be quiet and calm, maybe even pissed off. But the way it works now, nobody has time to be quiet. As soon as the whistle blows for the timeout, the dancers are running onto the court with big old smiles and the music is pumping like it's the 4th of July. Now everyone's supposed to be happy and smiling and dancing. What that tells me is the game really doesn't matter. Winning has become secondary. Emotion has become secondary. We're putting on a show instead of being in a heated competition. The NBA believes that if you can send the fans home happy, that's all that matters. The league thinks a few dunks is enough. It isn't, though. The game matters. You can entertain people and show them a good time by playing the game the way it should be played. The game is enough. This is a great game. The league has gotten away from the things that made it great. The NBA's best years were from about 1981 to 1980, when guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Isaiah Thomas came into this league and brought it to the level of success and popularity it is today. The league didn't get to where it is by giving rookies $70 million contracts before they even play a minute in the league. It got there because of the game and because there were people out there who knew how to play it. They loved the game and respected it. They cared about it. Is that too much to ask? If it wasn't for guys like Bird, Magic, Michael, and Isaiah, and guys like me too, the NBA would probably be behind baseball in terms of fan popularity. That would be a fucking disaster. Or it could be even worse. If it wasn't for those guys and the teams they played on, the league could be dead right now. That time slot from the beginning of the 80s to the beginning of the 90s, the league was provided with basketball players. These weren't showmen or guys who worried about the way they looked on the highlights. Guys like Magic and Bird and Michael put on a great show, but it was always the team and the game that came first. Our Pistons team was a great example of a bunch of guys who went out there and knew the game inside and out. You always knew where the other team was going to, or the other guy was going to be, and what he was going to do once he got there. You watch some teams these days and you wonder if they just met on the playground and decided to choose up sides. When I go back and look at all those tapes of all those years, our games with the Celtics, the Lakers against the Celtics, us, and the Bulls, it's all flat out badass basketball. It's guys playing hard, diving on the floor. It was Bird hitting jumpers in everybody's face. Isaiah getting off shots inside Lambier's kicking someone else's ass. Me shutting down Clyde Drexler or Bird or Scottie Pippen. It was the coolest time this sport ever knew. The emotion of those playoff games against the Celtics or Bulls was unlike anything I've ever been around. We were on a mission to beat those guys and nothing else mattered. In San Antonio, those guys couldn't block everything out and play like it was life or death. They didn't understand that, and you couldn't approach the playoffs like you approached the regular season. The heat was turned up in the playoffs, and you had to turn up the furnace inside you to compete. Those Detroit teams were able to move everything off to the side in search of the championship. Kids had to move to the side, wives, girlfriends, anything that wasn't basketball. You just had to commit yourself and do without the distractions in order to make that dream come true. If you didn't, somebody would tell you about it. Rick Mayhorn or Bill Lambier or somebody else would call you into a back room, I know they did it with me, and say, "Yo bro, get with the program, we're all in this together and you can't be fucking with it." Everybody had a feeling these were special years in the NBA. It was an incredible collection of great players coming together at the same time to rescue the game. Before those years, the NBA was a wasteland. It was in danger of going out of business. The league was a traveling cocaine show, and teams weren't selling out every arena like they are today, not even close. It was incredible to be a part of the era when the league came alive and to have been on one of the teams that made that era great. Today, guys don't know the game. All they know is how much money, how much fame, how much pussy they can get. It's as simple as that. Who has the best cars? Who has the best clothes? Who can get there first with the most? The game? Fuck the game. You can go around the league and pick out the people like that. The rookies coming in don't know the game. They're coming into the league too early, and they're getting all this money and there's no incentive to learn the game. There are examples everywhere. Guys like Rasheed Wallace and Glenn Robinson are good players, but they're not ready to come in and take over the league like everybody is led to believe. I understand that players have a lot of money and everybody wants to dress nicely and have a cool car, but goddamn, care about the game. Please care about the game. It makes me sad to see the game today. It's like we worked so hard to bring it up to a certain level, and then it got out of hand. Things got out of control, and it started sliding backward. The league today is very, very unhealthy. Most of the guys who come into the league to buy the image of what the league is selling, or buy into the league image that the league is selling, and they're going to regret it. That life provides you with nothing but a lifelong hole inside you. There's going to be a hole in your life you can't heal up. It's going to grow and grow and grow until it's so fucking big, no doctor's going to be able to stitch it up. The hole is created when you got the opportunity and the wide range to have everything in your life. Everything. There are no rules and no boundaries to the things you can experience. But when that stretch of time is over, when you're all used up and nobody wants your autograph anymore, what have you done to prepare your mind to fill this fucking hole? There's nothing out there to prepare you to fill it. More than anything, this game is a diversion. It's an escape. The people who watch us and love the game because it takes them out of their daily routine. They can put aside their problems with their husbands, wives, kids, and bosses for 2 hours of entertainment. The NBA has discovered it can make money this way. You can sell jerseys and posters based on highlight clips and images on the television screen. The league has removed the pressure to perform. The feeling in that Pistons locker room, that charged energy, wasn't in the Spurs locker room. I think it was in Houston because Hakeem put it there, and it's in Chicago with the Bulls, but in most places I don't think it exists. The downfall started when they decided it was a good idea to give rookies insane amounts of money before they got into the league. It should be just like baseball used to be. If you performed, you got paid. They've taken that carrot away and they've started gearing the game more for the attraction and the profit than the basketball. Money changes everybody. Anybody who says different is lying. It changed me at the beginning of my career when I got to Detroit and got my first paycheck. I had never had money before. I used to think the $6.50 an hour I made at the airport was a fortune. Now I was looking at a salary of about $110,000. And all of a sudden the world was different. I could do and buy shit I never knew existed before. But it never changed me as a player. And if it did, there were guys on that team would have steered me in the right direction in no time. The reasons I was playing the game have always stayed the same. The game was all I cared about. It never felt like a job. After the shit I'd been through, how could I ever think of basketball as a job? Glenn Robinson came into the league and started making $9 million right off the bat. Chris Webber signed a $68 million contract with the Golden State Warriors when he left Michigan and was the first pick in the 1993 draft. Look at the first 5 or 6 picks of every draft for the past 5 or 6 years, and you'll see incredible amounts of money being given to players who hadn't achieved anything. The game has been hurt by this. The players coming into the league in the 90s aren't as well-rounded as they were 10 years ago. Aside from guys like Jason Kidd or Anthony Hardaway, everybody who comes in thinks that all you have to do is score and look good, and everybody will love you. The young players aren't working as hard to get better either, because all that money is guaranteed. They could score 1 point a game for the rest of their lives and still cash the checks. Why do you need to compete and work your ass off if you're making $80 million over 10 years and every cent of it is guaranteed? I think the league is headed for trouble. It's fine now. The teams are making money. The sport is still popular. But they're trying to bring a new image to the game, and I think it's going to blow up in their faces at some point. It's similar to what happened to us in Detroit. We were the bad boys. Me, Lambier, Mahorn, Sally, and the league thought that was cool. They marketed us as the bad boys, and people started picking up on it. Everywhere we went, it was bad boys this and bad boys that. We loved it and thrived off it. Then, after about 2 years of this, the NBA changed its mind. It wasn't a good idea to promote bad boys anymore, so they dropped it. We were the same guys playing the same way, but I guess we weren't bad boys anymore because we'd lost the blessing of the league office. We were setting a bad example for kids probably, because we were playing the game the way it should have been played. Incredible. The NBA is afraid of me. The people at the top of the league think they need to rein me in so I don't become another Michael Jordan, somebody that they aren't able to mold and shape and make their puppet. The NBA didn't make me. They're in the business of taking these young guys who come into the league and marketing the hell out of them until they become stars. They take the guys everybody knows from college and they throw them into the spotlight right away. They choose the players they think show the NBA in the most positive light, so everybody buys a jersey with their names on them and votes them into the All-Star game. They create the image, then they control the image. But they didn't create me, and they can't control me. I didn't need the league's help to get to where I am. I made it in spite of them, bro. It seems the league and the Spurs were trying to discourage people from liking me, and what happened? It backfired. Sports Illustrated ran a cover story of me in May of 1995, the one with me wearing leather on my body and one of my 15 exotic birds on my shoulder. That was the best-selling Sports Illustrated of the year, if you don't count the swimsuit edition. That's the kind of thing the league doesn't understand. Sometimes different is better. I honestly don't think the league wants guys to take the route I did, to come from nothing and build it up on my own. The guys who run the league are scared by that because they want to control the image and control the person. For 7 years in this league, I was seen as a guy who won a couple of rebounding titles, always played harder than shit, and spoke his mind. That was basically it. I wasn't a threat to anybody, and it didn't look like I would make a huge dent in this league. I did things like hang out in Vegas, losing money faster than I thought, and getting my daughter's portrait tattooed into my forearm. I was a novelty, but nobody thought it would amount to much more than that. Then, all of a sudden, that changed. After that night in the parking lot of the Palace, I made the decision to be the person I wanted to be and not the person everybody else wanted me to be, or the person everyone thought I was going to become. When I first got to San Antonio, I changed my hair. I wasn't trying to make a statement, really. It was just something to do. I went to a hairdresser in San Antonio, and he and I talked about it. I had dreadlocks at the time, and I told him I wanted to make a bold statement. I decided to bleach my hair blonde. I had done it on the day they unveiled the Alamo Dome. All the team's investors, tons of media, and about 5,000 fans were there to watch us go through drills and shoot around. I was 30 minutes late because the damn bleach job took too long. When I finally got to the arena, they introduced me, and I took off my Rodman excavation cap and let the world see the new me. The place went absolutely nuts. David Robinson introduced me and handed me the microphone. "You can like me or hate me," I said. "But all I can say is, when I get on that damn floor, all I'm going to do is get solid." That's all I said. I just dropped the microphone on the floor and walked off. When I saw how the people responded to me, I realized this is the time to break out. The time to be who I really want to be. People accepted this. They started calling me Demolition Man in San Antonio after the Wesley Snipes movie. The funny thing is, everybody thought I was copying Wesley Snipes when I first did my hair that way. But I didn't know anything about the movie until afterward. I went to it, and when I saw him, I thought, oh shit, that's what everyone's talking about. What I did when I got to San Antonio was totally change my persona, and the persona of the game changed with me. It was nothing to go from there to red hair, or orange hair, or green hair with the red AIDS ribbon colored into the back of my head. People came to expect something from me. They had call-in polls about my hair color. All that shit. It was like a damn brush fire that nobody could control. This scared the NBA. This was out of their control. I was coloring outside the lines, and the league didn't know where it would lead next. I know what scared them. They were afraid I might bring something totally different back to this game. And that's dignity. Dignity for all the players. Being human. And they're afraid of that. They don't want to see guys going out there and getting tattoos or voicing their opinions. When I got a tattoo, there were few guys in the league. There were very few guys in the league or in all sports with tattoos. Now look around. Everybody's got one. I'm not unique anymore, even though I'm still leading the league with 11. Just about every other guy in college has a tattoo now. Players like Damon Stoudemire come into the league with tattoos, and nobody even notices them. Dennis Scott got his father's image tattooed onto his arm, and it wasn't a big deal. Some players are bringing something different to the floor, and you'd have to be blind to think I didn't at least have a little something to do with that. The bottom line is, this league wants to control its players. They want to restrict players from doing things that are natural and human to do. They don't want anybody insulting the people who buy the tickets, the wealthy corporate types, because they're the only ones who can afford to go anymore. Nobody wants somebody like me around, stepping on toes, making mistakes, and doing normal human things. They want robots who can dunk. The NBA is so big on marketing. They were ahead of football and baseball from the start. The league understood what could happen if it flooded people with positive images of top players. But they've gotten so limited in who they market that it's almost suffocating. Mostly it's Michael and Shaq. They forced those two guys down people's throats. Pretty soon it's like, okay, nothing but Michael and Shaq, Michael and Shaq. Maybe some Grant Hill mixed in. How much of that can you take? The NBA is also hypocritical. They tell players all the things they can't do. You can't swear on the court. You can't be rough with the league's chosen ones. But at the same time, they're lining their pockets every time I do something out of the ordinary. Every time they make a big deal out of something, they profit from it. That happened in the 1991 playoffs when I bumped Scottie Pippen into the stands, which cut his chin and cost me $5,000. It happened again in the 1994 playoffs when I threw a hip at John Stockton and they suspended me for a game. More people get interested in the games when they can advertise me as the NBA's bad boy. More people come out to see me play. More people turn on the television to watch, and they can use the ratings to get more money from the people who advertise. I know how the system works. It's almost like the league is saying, okay, we'll let you go to a certain point as long as it's good for us. Then we're going to have to sit on you and make you look like an asshole. When they do that, they look good both ways. They make their money and they also give the public the impression they can control me. To me, they're saying, I can't be a man. That's what it comes down to. You just cannot be a man. You have to be what they think a man is. You have to be what an NBA man is supposed to be. The guys making these rules are guys like David Stern, 50-year-old white men who didn't come from where I came from and didn't come from where most of the NBA players came from. They don't understand anything but the business part of the sport. They don't understand the emotion and the intensity that goes into being a player in this league. Look, if a guy wants to get pissed off, let him get pissed off. I want to ask the league, what are you afraid of? That somebody might show they care about this game? There are too many guys in the league, like fucking Karl Malone, guys who are too high class to say anything to me. They're too fucking white collar to bother with some low-life bum like me. They can't associate with me off the court because I'm too different. I don't wear the custom clothes and go to the right parties. I hang out with real people in real places, and they can't let anyone like that into their fucking club. And the part that pisses them off the most is this. I don't give a shit. Don't talk to me. Because I don't want to talk to your ass anyway. Don't invite me to your fucking parties because I won't come. A lot of players in the league are afraid of me, especially the guys just coming in. They've read about or heard about me roughing people up on the court or sleeping in my truck with a loaded rifle or dating Madonna. They get out onto the floor and look into my eyes and they don't know what to expect. That's my edge against them. I keep the edge sharp by not talking to anybody on the court. I don't talk to anybody on the other team, and I rarely talk to guys on my own team. These guys look at me and they're amazed at what I do, and they're a little intimidated by the way I do it. I've had quite a few players come up to me and say, "What drives you, bro? What keeps you going like that? How can you run all fucking night, diving all over the floor and never get tired?" All the time they're asking these questions, they're looking at me like they're not sure what they really want to know. Then there are guys like Charles Barkley. I can't count the number of times he's come up to me and said, "I wish I had you 2 years ago. You have it all, bro. You just have it all." We came so close to playing together, too. Before the Pistons traded me to San Antonio, they had made a deal to send me to Phoenix for Richard Dumas. Then Dumas tested positive for drugs, and the trade was called off. Just another bad break. Can you imagine Charles Barkley and me in the same starting lineup? That'd be great. Would anybody get a rebound against us? It seemed the one time the other players want to talk to me is when they decide it's time to preach to me. These are the church-going, conservative guys. David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Avery Johnson. Karl Malone even lowered himself to do it one time, but it was a long time ago. They try to talk to me, and each time I just look at them and either nod or shake my head. I don't have anything to say to them, and they come away thinking I'm crazy. I know what they want, and I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of getting it. They want to hear me roar. They want to hear me say things nobody else will say. They want me to confirm in their minds that I'm as weird as they think I am. Dennis, we gotta talk, they'll say. You've gotta set an example for the kids. They might as well just come out and say, what's driving you? What's making you mad? That's the word they used to describe me. Mad. The ridiculous thing about these quote-unquote NBA stars worrying about the example I set for kids is the response I get from the kids. It's the complete opposite of everything I hear from the league and its so-called important players. Kids tell me, I think you're so cool. I don't hear, I think you're a great basketball player. There's a big difference between I love your style and I love the way you rebound. To me, it means they're getting something from me that isn't completely or only about basketball. I wonder, why are there people out there who idolize Dennis Rodman? Why? It baffles me. There's a lady in Los Angeles, a high-class hairstylist at a big-time salon in Beverly Hills, who joined my fan club in San Antonio and called me at the hotel one time when I was in Los Angeles. I met with her. No sex, nothing like that. And we had dinner. Now I see her when I come to Los Angeles. She told me to come in and have my nails done at her salon, so one afternoon I was living in Orange County. I decided to drive into Beverly Hills and do it. I didn't know the first thing about where she worked, and it turned out to be this ritzy famous place called Umberto, a block off Rodeo Drive. I'm feeling way out of place getting my nails painted in this place. Cobalt blue, by the way. But it's people like her that make me wonder, what's the attraction? Sometimes I don't even know who I am, and these people are calling me their hero? But when I ask them why, almost all of them say the same thing. You're your own man. You just don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Charles Barkley got crucified for saying he isn't a role model. But I'm not either. I'm not trying to be a role model. I know I'm in a position where I should be one, but I'm not. I can't put myself up there on that pedestal and tell kids they should do things the way I do them. I know my way isn't for everybody, and I would hope that everybody has an easier road to success than I had. I figure the only thing I can do is show that I care about people and that you can be in the public spotlight and still be true to yourself. This role model business is mostly hypocritical bullshit. Anyway, you make it to the NBA, so you've got to be this big-ass poster child now. If you sit at the end of the bench, you don't have to be as much of a role model. But if you're good, you've got to really put some effort into it. When you make it, you got to go out there and do public service and make donations and start foundations. A lot of that stuff doesn't mean shit, though. Guys aren't setting up these non-profit foundations or making appearances at soup kitchens because they want to. They're doing it because somebody's telling them it's good for their image. And they might be able to make some money off it someday. I don't have a foundation. And I don't give $10 for every rebound. But I do things nobody else does. I give tickets to people on the street who might have never seen an NBA game because they've priced the damn seats out of everybody's range. I've given tickets to homeless families who are standing outside arenas begging for food. I've done this all over. San Antonio, Boston, New York. I used to do it all the time in Detroit. I just walk up to these people and ask them if they'd like to see a game. Most of the time they're so stunned that somebody like me would even talk to them that they can't do much more than nod. I like to go into the toughest parts of town, wherever I am, just to remember where I came from. I do it all the time in Dallas. Just go back and walk or drive through my old neighborhood. In Detroit, I used to give out money all the time. Just hand it out because these people need it more than I do. I talk to people too, because I can relate to them. I know what it's like to be out there with nothing. One time I gave this man on a street corner in Detroit close to $1,000. It was all I had in my pocket. And what the fuck did I need it for? This guy had a hard life, and he had nothing to show for it. I do those things to keep myself balanced and to stay in touch with the real world. Sometimes I'd strike up a conversation with somebody on the streets and bring him home with me. I'd just tell him to get into the car and come home with me. Then I would feed him and let him clean himself up. Let me just read that back. Then I would feed him and let him clean himself up. It doesn't take much to make a difference in somebody's life in this world of professional basketball. I think Dennis was fucking homeless people. You can wall yourself off and make believe there's no suffering in the world. To me, what I do is affecting people more directly than if I put my name on some charity just so I can look good. I watch other players, guys who do all the right public service things, and they'll cross the street to avoid making eye contact with the kind of people I give tickets or food to. Just show by example. It's that easy. You don't have to do all that other crap, especially if you're not comfortable with it. I don't think it's fair for people to put us on this pedestal and say, you've got to be a good boy for 10 years you play in this league. You behave for 10 years and you'll be a role model. I'm sitting here looking at how all this works and I'm thinking, damn, really? I have some questions about this format. Does it mean that all of a sudden I've got to run your life because I'm an athlete? I have to make you believe everything's great because I'm an athlete now? Maybe it's not great. Maybe my life isn't great. If I tell you it is, I'm lying to you. Is lying okay because I'm carrying out my duties as a role model? Is it fair for me to pretend I can give you the leadership, the guidance, and direction just because I can play this game? How did you function before I got here? How did you make it work or school or whatever, or make it to work or school or whatever you go before I came along? Did you have a good life or a bad life? And now, just because you found somebody you really love, idolize, and emulate, you want to trademark yourself as that person? Do you really want to wear that person's jersey and pretend you're him just because he can play a game? I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. We're athletes. We're not equipped to run somebody else's life. That's not our occupation. We don't have all the answers, bro. Maybe some of us are the ones still asking questions. If you look at it from my side, why should I try and make you believe in the things I believe in? If I do that, I'm setting myself up for a big fall. There are people out there with a bomb waiting for a guy like me to fail. When you do fail, they say, oh, I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. Why did I ever trust this person? Why did I ever believe he wouldn't fail me? Society is so messed up today. Kids have too much to get into right in their own neighborhoods to worry about what I'm doing. The NBA's chosen ones think I'm setting a bad example. I think they need to look around and stop taking themselves so seriously. You're just not that important, bro. Drugs are running wild, like a fucking river down the street. Girls are getting pregnant, younger and younger, and AIDS doesn't give a shit how old you are. As my daughter Alexis grows up, I know she's going to get in trouble. I can teach her everything I know. I can tell her the way it is. If you're going to have sex, use a condom. Be safe. Be careful. I can't tell her not to have sex. If I do, she's going to do it anyway. She's going to do it just to spite me. All I can do is coach her and tell her the options. I think kids respect you more when you put the decision in their hands. If you tell them they can have sex, but they have to be careful, they're going to look at that and say, he says I can have sex, but you know what? If I don't want to, I don't have to. With me, everything's right on the table. You can accept it or ignore it a lot easier when you know there's no hypocrisy involved. I just try to entertain the people and stay true to myself and the game. I don't preach to kids. I don't talk to the kids. I don't talk to kids. I do know that every kid is looking for an escape. They're looking for something that's outside their world, whether they're living in the worst part of the worst project or the ritziest suburb. I spent my whole childhood looking for an escape, and I didn't find it until I started growing and playing basketball after high school. Even then, it was like the escape found me. I was confused as a kid. I was confused about my sexual identity, my future, my whole place in the world. But I didn't know what I wanted. When you grow up in the projects, the world seems so small. Your mind is not trained to look down the line. You don't reason out what might happen if you turn right or what might happen if you turn left. There's nothing in your frame of reference for things like consequences or goals. Most kids are like that, to some degree or another. You're just a kid living day to day, and you have to make all those mistakes and find your path on your own. No athlete can help you do that. And I think it's stupid and egotistical for us to think we can.